Jesus begins by saying in the gospel that we have just heard, "To you who listen, I say this." And listening really is the key, certainly to the scripture, because you see, God speaks first, and the prime task of the human being is to listen to the voice of God. You see it in the Old Testament, where the great cry goes up, words that the Jewish people repeat every day of their life. Shema Israel, listen Israel. That's where it all begins. Words echoed by Jesus in the New Testament and down through the millennia of Christian history. Listen is the great art that must be learned. And if we stand in need of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, desperately so in some ways, it is because there has been too little listening. Those who came to these shores 200 years or so ago, and I'm the son of them, have never really learned to listen to the strange and wonderful accents of the First Nations peoples. They speak differently, and for too long it has seemed that they speak hardly at all. They have been rendered invisible, inaudible. They have nothing to say, nothing to which we should listen, and certainly nothing from which we might learn. This is a complete and utter lie, of course, but it is the lie that has become the wound that lies at the heart of Australia. And the wound has become, for centuries now, a running sore, the original sin of Australia. And until the sin is forgiven and the wound is healed, Australia will never, ever be what it is called to be in the mind and heart of God. So, as Jesus says, the first step is to listen, and that's much harder than it sounds. But brothers and sisters, what we recognise here today is that unless we are building the house of reconciliation on the foundation of the open ear that really listens, even the ears of the heart, then we are building on sand. It won't work. So we must learn to listen. And listening, we must, those of us who are non-Indigenous and who call the shots in this land, must learn. Do we really believe that we have nothing to learn? Or is in fact there a vast wisdom which we need to learn if we are to take the path of reconciliation together? As I have grown older, I have come to see just how much the immigrant peoples of this land have to learn from the Indigenous, how difficult it is, but how utterly essential that learning is if we are to take the path into the future together. Jesus speaks about loving our enemies, but you see, one of the things we really learn when we learn to listen to Indigenous peoples, is that they are not our enemies. You are not our enemies. We've treated you as if you were and made you refugees in your own land, but that again is part of the lie. You who are Indigenous, you are not our enemies. You're our sisters, our brothers, our flesh and blood. So we don't have to learn to love our enemies. Jesus is right that love of enemies is important, but in this country, at the point of reconciliation, we need to learn to love those whom we have treated as our enemies. The point is different. And once we've learned that, we are in a position to love. Now, love has much more than sentimentality and feeling to it. They may be part of love or loving, but they're not its heart, because in fact love is a decision. So we, at least in this Archdiocese, have taken a decision that we will embark upon a new kind of journey that goes under the title of Reconciliation Action Plan. And the whole of this country needs to take a similar journey, with no illusions about how long and difficult it may be, but knowing that we have no other real option. So we have to make a decision that's based upon truth, that builds upon rock and not sand. And once we have made a decision, finally, we are in a position to act in a way that makes a difference and doesn't have all the peoples of Australia just going round and round and round the mulberry bush and getting nowhere, like Burke and Wills just disappearing into the deserts of this land. So the journey has a shape, brothers and sisters. It becomes the wrap in this diocese, and I thank all of those who have been part of putting it together. It's been a journey of learning, and in some ways of blood, sweat and tears, but it has borne fruit. So too the way ahead will have its tough times, but if we can listen and learn and decide and act, we have there the 4 steps that may in fact produce the reconciliation which everyone wants, or claims to want at least, but which has eluded this country at this time. Only then will the running sore be healed. Only then will the original sin of Australia be forgiven.